Okay, so in my last tutorial a couple of weeks ago, I was talking about 4 chords that you can use to play hundreds and hundreds of different songs. And the tutorial was pretty popular, and I got talking about pop piano type styles with various people. And off the back of that, I'm putting together a set of little studies, little exercises. 1 or 2 people suggested this idea, so I'm scoring up some pop piano studies that I'm going to put together in a little book and hopefully get out fairly soon. I've been looking for another sort of book project to work on since the Cocktail piano book, so I thought that sounded like quite a good one. So watch this space. That's going to be available hopefully before Christmas if I pull my finger out and get it done. But today I thought what we'd do is take another of those little 4 chord sequences like we did last time and look at another way that you can explore it in a kind of pop piano, a kind of ballady pop piano style, if you like. Again, this is one of those tutorials for people who are kind of new to the channel or kind of new to this kind of piano playing. So I am going to take things a little bit from the basics, as it were. So, you know, if you're a bit more familiar with harmony and music theory and that kind of thing, you might want to skip a couple of minutes while I just go over how the chords work and so on. What we're basically going to look at today, though, as you might have guessed from what I was playing at the start, is a minor key chord sequence. It's a very simple chord sequence, again, 4 chords which we're going to repeat on a loop. And as I say, very straightforward. Let me just play it through to you. It's D minor, B flat, F, and C. That's the chords of D minor, B flat, F, and C. Okay, so D minor is D, F, and A. B flat is B flat, D, and F. F is F, A, and C is C, E, and G. Okay, all in the key of D minor. Now, as I said in the last tutorial, and it's worth having a look at it if you haven't seen it, I'll include a link. The great thing about the piano is that you can take those chords and play them in hundreds and hundreds of different ways, really. So, yes, that's D minor, but so is that, and that, and that, and that. Yeah, there are loads of different voicings and inversions that you can play those different chords in. Okay, so that's the kind of underlying fundamental. As I say, if you're a little bit unsure about that, do have a look at the last tutorial. What we're going to do today is to work on a kind of a poppy ballady style improvisation using that little loop. But this week, rather than using the techniques we were looking at in the last tutorial, we're going to use broken chords. That's where you take a chord and literally break it into its constituent parts, playing 1 note or maybe 2 notes at a time. So instead of D minor, B flat, F, C, we're going to break those chords up. See, I mean, that's doing it in a very, very basic way. We'll move on from that in a second. But do you see how breaking up the chord immediately creates interest and movement and rhythm? So instead of just doing that, yeah, we're breaking it up like that. Look at the fingers I'm using there. I'm using 1, 2, and 3. If you've got smaller hands, you can easily use 1, 3, and 5. And if you're new to the piano, that's probably the configuration of fingers you're going to be more comfortable with there. So again, look what I did there. Taking those chords, D minor, B flat, F, and C. I just broke up the chord. Yeah, a really sort of fundamental pop piano technique, really. I mean, a fundamental technique in all kinds of piano playing. Now, just playing the chords in those positions is kind of dull, and it's also kind of hard work because we're jumping around and having to move our hands a lot. It would make a lot more sense to play the chords in a set of inversions that were more tightly locked together. Okay, let me give you an example. did there. Let me play the basic chords. They're still the same. D minor, B flat, F and C. But notice how I've chosen chord shapes there, voicings, inversions, that are more closely intertwined with each other. So having to jump around, the movements I'm making are actually fairly minimal, which helps the progression flow much more naturally. D minor, B flat, F, C. I'm not having to move my hand very much. I could, of course, if I wanted to, I could be much more dramatic and go up and down the piano keyboard. But you can create really, really sort of beautiful effects by keeping those chords really closely locked together. So have a go at that. It doesn't particularly matter what order you play the notes in, but just play through that set of inversions as broken chords. Notice also in the left, I'm not always playing the note that the chord is named after in the left. Yeah. Often I am doing, especially at the start, to give that D minor chord its identity, and for the B flat, but the F is over A. If we were naming the chord, we would say it was F over A, which would be written F/A, and then C over G. And that gives me a much more natural descending bass line. Yeah? Let me just play that through again so you can see it. Adventurous towards the end there. Have a go at that. Just something to look out for is make sure that if possible you're keeping the notes in the broken chord nice and even. So what we don't want to hear is too much stress, for example, on the first note. I mean, if you're after that particular effect you could, but by and large try to keep it nice and even. Something else I'm doing is using a bit of sustain pedal to stick it together. If I didn't use a sustain pedal, it would sound much more kind of sparse and bare. Which again isn't a bad effect in itself, but it's not usually what you're going to be after. Using sustain there is dead easy. Just pedal on each chord, and when you change the chord, just lift the pedal off and put it down again. Okay, it's just a very simple movement with your foot. Hear me doing it because I'm doing it in a more kind of pronounced way there. Okay, so just have a go at that little pattern and see where it takes you. The next question is obviously what can you do with it? Well, once you're confident with that, feel free to extend, because you can play for each of those broken chords any note that turns up in the chord. Let me give you a demonstration of the kind of thing you might do, starting with the original pattern first. I was kind of pushing the boat out towards the end there, but I didn't go beyond the notes of the chords. Basically, every single note I played there, I think, was from the chord of D minor, B flat, F, or C. Yeah? So I was only ever playing those notes, even when I was going really crazy. Yeah, all the notes I just played there were D's, F's, and A's. Okay, so I wasn't having to think really hard about, you know, oh my word, which note do I play next? It was always a D, an F, or an A. Chord of B flat, every single one of those notes was B flat, D, or F. So with a simple chord sequence using broken chords, you can do some really quite dramatic things. But start simple, okay? Make sure you know the chords, make sure you're comfortable with the chords. And just start with a simple pattern like this before you start to go crazy. And as ever, as I always say, it's a question of sitting down and practicing and putting in the time and thinking about it and experimenting, so that it really kind of becomes second nature.